Assembly Committee on Education is called to order. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Duran.
Here.
Assemblyman Flores.
Present.
Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Here.
Assemblywoman Hanson.
Here.
Assemblywoman Hardy.
Here.
Assemblywoman Krasner.
Here.
Assemblywoman Marzola.
Here.
Assemblyman MacArthur.
Here.
Assemblywoman Miller. Assemblywoman Miller. Assemblywoman Nguyen.
Here.
Oh, sorry.
Here.
Assemblywoman Tolles.
Here.
Assemblywoman Torres.
Here.
Chair Bill Bray Axelrod.
Here. And let the record show we do have a quorum. So welcome to everyone who is watching online or through YouTube. And thank you, members, for being here today. Before we begin, I'm just going to make a few housekeeping announcements. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to mute your microphone when you're not speaking to minimize background noise. Additionally, committee members, keep your cameras on for the duration of the meeting so we can ensure that we have a quorum. We do expect courtesy and respect in this committee. We don't always agree with policy, and that's fine. There may be disagreements on today's bills, but we need to be respectful to each other and the legislative process. Agenda items may be taken in different order than listed. 2 or more agenda items may be combined for consideration. An item may be removed from the agenda, or discussion of an item on this agenda may be delayed at any time. Reminder that all of the materials can be accessed through the legislative website on Nellis, that's Nelis. And for those of you watching us online, in this virtual world, we do have several screens going on at once. So if you see members looking away or looking down, they are most likely looking at committee materials and other things having to do with this hearing today. So we have 2 bill hearings this afternoon, and I have allocated equal time for testimony and support, opposition, and neutral. To be specific, each person providing testimony will be allowed a maximum of 2 minutes. Staff will time each speaker to ensure everyone is given an equal opportunity to speak. Speakers are urged to avoid repetition of comments made by previous speakers. If someone said exactly what you wanted to say, please just say ditto, or I echo what the previous caller said. We will be limiting the overall length of each testimony period to 30 minutes, and we'll break it up so we hear 10 minutes from support, 10 minutes opposition, and 10 minutes in neutral, and then go back through each group. All testimony in support, opposition, and neutral will test over our audio call line. If you wish to testify and have not done so already, please pre-register online through the link provided on the agenda for the meeting. Registration opens when the agenda is posted on the Nevada Legislature website. Upon successful registration, you'll receive a telephone number, meeting ID, and instructions for joining the meeting. So we have an accurate record and count. We ask that you do not share this information, but instead encourage others to register online to participate. You may also register even if you don't want to testify, so there's a record of your interest in a particular bill. And you may also submit public comment in writing, either in addition or in lieu of testifying, and I will be certain that all members of the committee receive that. The chair or members of the committee may request testifiers to submit documentation supporting their testimony. So we are going to go out of order today, and we're going to start with the hearing on AB 38. And so now I will open the bill on Assembly Bill 38. This bill revises provisions relating to career and technical education and work-based learning. Deputy Superintendent Gonzalez, please begin when you are ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Bilbray Axelrod, Vice Chair Miller, and members of the Committee on Education. Deputy Superintendent of Educator Effectiveness, Felicia Gonzalez, for the record, presenting Assembly Bill 38, known as Work-Based Learning and Perkins Alignment by the Department. This bill was pre-filed by Governor Sisolak on behalf of the Department of Education, but this bill was truly filed on behalf of our career and technical education partners, especially those in rural districts whose work demands that our students graduate ready to live and work in the communities they grow up in. Section 1 allows a superintendent or designee to appoint to the Advisory Technical Skills Committee, and the advisory committee shall include pupils and parents of pupils enrolled in career and technical education, members of the Governor's Workforce Investment Board, or local entities in workforce development, representatives of special populations, and representatives who serve out-of-school youth, homeless children, and youth who are considered at risk, as well as representatives of Indian tribes and tribal organizations, and stakeholders as prescribed by state board regulations, or the superintendent or designee may consult regularly with those listed for eligibility to the advisory committee to carry out the duties of an advisory technical skills committee. Subsection 2 defines the duties of the advisory technical skills committee as follows. Provide input on updates to the comprehensive local needs assessment, review instructional supplies, equipment, and operations to determine effectiveness in preparing pupils to enter the workforce, apprenticeships or college, and meet the needs of business and industry in the region. Advise school districts on valuable credentials and provide technical assistance to meet the career and technical education standards prescribed by the state board, and develop work-based learning experiences. In keeping with the department's legislative priority of alignment, the meeting of an advisory technical skills committee are not subject to Chapter 241 of NRS or open meeting law. Section 2, subsection 1 allows for pupils to apply credits towards high school graduation if the pupil successfully completes the number of hours in a work-based learning program required by State Board of Education regulation. Subsection 2 includes an on-site evaluation of pupils' performance in a work-based learning program. Subsection 3 requires school district board of trustees or governing bodies to designate a work-based learning coordinator to ensure that each business, agency, or organization that will offer employment and supervision of a pupil as part of the work-based learning program is suitable for participation, as well as establish and maintain a list of organizations suitable for work-based learning. Subsection 4 requires work-based learning program approval from the State Board of Education to include a detailed training agreement and training plan to be completed for each pupil participating for credit. Removes the 3 criteria of required number of hours a pupil must complete to qualify for credit, as well as completing an assessment prescribed by the state board related to a chosen career pathway or participation leading to a high school diploma. These changes are made in alignment to the federal Perkins 5 Act and create clarity for our school districts. Finally, subsection 6 includes updated reporting requirements to include the number of pupils participating and types of work-based learning offered. Thank you, and we are ready for any questions you may have about AB 38.
Thank you for that presentation. Members, do you have any questions? I see Assemblywoman Tolles. Do any others? Just so I can, Assemblywoman Duran. So we'll start with Assemblywoman Tolles, and after that we will go to Assemblywoman Duran.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I can't help but feel like I'm in school raising my hand. I love it. It's so appropriate for this committee. So thank you for that presentation. Thank you. These work-based programs are so incredibly important for preparing our students. And I just have a couple quick clarifying questions, if I may, just two. One is on section 2, subsection, let's see, 2E, the description of a manner in which the performance of a pupil who participates in the workplace program will include an on-site evaluation. And I just wondered if that also includes, in light of COVID, virtual evaluation, if that's appropriate.
Felicia Gonzalez, Deputy Superintendent, for the record. Yes, that it is appropriate for an on-site evaluation to be conducted through a virtual setting. Many of our districts have transitioned their students to online types of work-based learning experiences. For example, if a student is working with a tech company, that can be completed online, and therefore the person that is overseeing, or the teacher of record that is overseeing the program, can also join a Zoom call with this student and the employer that is providing this experience, and can conduct that on-site evaluation through a virtual setting.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much. And then my second question is also section 2, subsection 3, where the state board shall designate an employee of a school district to ensure that the business, agency, or organization essentially they will offer employment that's suitable for participation in a work-based learning program. And that certainly makes sense. I was just curious, who determines what grade the students should be in to participate? Are we giving that authority to the business, or are we still maintaining that authority with the school district to determine the grade level?
Felicia Gonzalez, Deputy Superintendent, for the record. Great question. The determination of a grade is at the district level. It is the grading is not done by the person or company that is providing the internship. And all districts do create they create rubrics and establish how a course will be graded, so the student knows what to expect and how they'll be graded. The Nevada Department of Education does not prescribe how a student is graded for during a work-based learning experience.
Great, thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next, we will go to Assemblywoman Duran.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is if a student is in a program and would like to change, is there options for them to do that? And is it a counselor working with them to monitor their learning, as well as giving them advice? Maybe that this training may not be for them. I guess that's my question.
Felicia Gonzalez, Deputy Superintendent, for the record. That is a wonderful question. Yes, so there's two pieces to that. The person that is the teacher of record that is overseeing the student's participation during that work-based learning experience. If it is not a good placement for that student, then that person would work with that student's counselor in order to provide a different experience, whether that means changing them to a different type of work-based learning experience or class, or moving them to a different elective to meet the student's needs.
And that's determined, oh, I'm sorry, if I may, here. Is this basically through high school, these programs are offered?
Felicia Gonzalez, Deputy Superintendent for the record. If you are referring to the work-based learning experiences such as jobs, et cetera, those are typically held at the high school level, yes.
Thank you. That's my question.
Okay, next we will go to Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Hi, thank you so much, Madam Chair. And I just had a quick question. I'm sorry, I was trying to write it and didn't write fast enough. But you had made a comment that this legislation was made in alignment with a federal act. Which act was that again?
Federal Perkins 5.
Perkins. Thank you. I just couldn't write fast enough. And could you elaborate a little bit on what that act is?
Felicia Gonzalez, Deputy Superintendent for the record. Federal Perkins 5 is the federal funding for career and technical education.
Thank you very much.
Next, we will go to Assemblywoman Torres.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms. Gonzalez, for your presentation. I appreciate it. My question is kind of building off of Assemblywoman Toll's question from earlier, looking at Section 2, Subsection E on page 4 of the bill. I just wanted to know if the plan was for the Nevada Department of Ed to release any type of guidance on what that evaluation would look like. Since we do have a variety of workplace learning programs throughout the state of Nevada, it would just make sense to me that there was some type of consistency about what would be accepted as evaluations for those work-based programs throughout the state.
Felicia Gonzalez, Deputy Superintendent for the record. That is a great question. And so what I'm understanding is, do we have a template on what a workplace site evaluation looks like? And I do have to say that what we do is we meet regularly with work-based learning coordinators. So if they need technical assistance on how to and how to create a site evaluation, that is provided by the Nevada Department of Education. A work site evaluation looks very different from one industry to another. So to have a specific template in place that for each one would look very different. So at the moment, the team works directly with the work-based learning coordinators that are required to be in place for each school district, and provides them assistance on how to, on what that would look like based upon the industry or business that the student is participating in.
Follow up if I may, Chair. So I guess my follow-up question to that would be then, is there like any consistency? So I know like in Northern Nevada, there's several work-based learning programs that are similar to what already exists in Southern Nevada as well. So I'm wondering, is there consistency between what those evaluation mechanisms would look like between the programs right now, or is there a plan for that in the future?
Deputy Superintendent Felicia Gonzalez for the record. I can certainly take that back to the team and see if that is something that is being looked at and considered.
Okay, thank you. And when you find that information out, if you would pass it on to our committee, and I'll make sure that the members get that information. All right, are there any other questions? I haven't seen any hands go up, so. All right, so we will move on to hear testimony in support, opposition, and neutral for Assembly Bill 38. Please remember to clearly state and spell your name and limit your testimony to 2 minutes. We will begin testimony in support of AB 38. Staff from Broadcast and Production Services, please add the first caller.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in support on AB 38, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 927, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello, and thank you, Committee Chairwoman Bilberry Axelrod and committee members. My name is Hava, H-A-W-A-H, Ahmad, A-H-M-A-D, and I'm a proud graduate of Washoe County School District, here representing the Clark County Education Association. The Clark County Education Association represents more than 18,000 licensed professionals in Clark County School District. We are the largest independent teachers union in the country and in the state of Nevada. We engage in bipartisan advocacy for advancing public education in Nevada. CCEA would like to voice our support for this Assembly bill. CCEA supports investing in the Nevada education system to ensure that we have the skilled workforce necessary for a diversified economy. We believe this bill will help streamline the efficiency for work-based learning and will help to ensure that every stakeholder's voice is heard to ensure that every work-based program in K-12 is outcome determinative and derivative to either a certification or credential to further education, to employment, or directly to employment. As we navigate these complex times, we must ensure that we strategically invest our time, money, and efforts to provide opportunities to our students. All hands must be on deck to ensure that our existing work-based programs are strengthened, while we ensure that we create programs to fill current and projected job openings. CCEA must emphasize that the path to rebuilding Nevada's economy is economic diversification and workforce development. And to get on that path, we must invest in K-20. CCEA appreciates the efforts of this committee and all stakeholders for this bill and supports all efforts that foster integrated learning opportunities that lead to skill and workforce development. Thank you for your time.
Next caller.
Caller with the last three digits, 888. Please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the Assembly Committee on Education. My name is Miley Alarcon, M-A-Y-L-I-A-L-A-R-C-O-N, and I am a second-year law student at William S. Boyd who is externing with Curra, Nevada. I am before you today to testify on behalf of the Nevada Bankers Association in support of Assembly Bill 19. The Nevada Bankers Association appreciates the Department of Education's commitment to financial literacy instruction and believes that it's critical for our students. We encourage your support and thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Next caller.
Caller with the last three digits of 498. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. This is Erica Valdez, E-R-I-C-A-V-A-L-D-R-I-Z, with the Vegas Chamber, and we are in support of AB 38. We fully recognize the advantages and positive investments of career and technical education. The availability of the CTE program and the guidance of an advisory technical skills committee can play a massive role in a student's understanding of who they are and where they want to go in life. Career and technical education contributes a major share to the overall education system and plays an important role in the social and economic development of our state. In this era of unemployment, technical education can assure one of a job or a source of income in terms of technical skills and provide comfortable living. The Chamber is supportive of the proposed changes in Section 1 relating to the composition of the advisory committees to be more inclusive and proposed requirements in Section 2 for schools that offer a work-based learning program. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee for your time. We urge your support for this bill.
Thank you. Next caller. Do we have a next caller broadcast?
Yes, let me queue up the next person. We will come back to them. Caller with the last three digits of 692. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. What minutes and maybe.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Mary Przynski, MaryPerzynski, representing the Nevada Association of School Superintendents, and that is comprised of all 17 superintendents in the state. Our CTE and work-based training programs are very, very important in our schools, and the 17 superintendents are in support of AB 38 as it enhances programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Krasinski. Next caller.
Caller with the last three digits of 676. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last three digits of 676. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin. I'll go on to the next caller and we'll come back. Caller with the last three digits of 540. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last three digits of 540. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
I'm wondering if we have an issue with unmuting. Are they supposed to press star 9?
It's star 6.
Star 6?
Star 6. Caller with the last three digits of 540. Can you press star 6 to unmute?
Broadcast, why don't we move on to opposition and we can circle back to support and try those couple callers again, but let's move on to opposition.
Not a problem, Chair. To testify in opposition on AB 38, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits of 534. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. This is Skip Daly, Skipdaly, and I usually don't get to the Education Committee too often, and I apologize to the sponsors. Didn't get a chance to talk to you guys before now, but my main concern, sole concern actually with the bill is the exemption from the open meeting law, I believe in section 4. If there was a reason stated, it was glossed over, and disappointed that no one asked the question. Can't for the life of me think of why this committee or any of these quasi-government agencies would need to be exempt from the open meeting law. Some people may say that sounds hypocritical because the legislature is exempt, but there are sound reasons for that. But I've listened to the testimony, looked at the bill, and can't see the reason for it to be exempt in this particular case. I think the public likes to know that these types of committees are done in the open air, in the sunshine, that there's an agenda and there's a recording of the minutes and a record of actions taken when the public interests are at stake. So that's my comments. I hope this committee will take that in advisement and make the appropriate corrections and remove that section. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's nice to hear your voice, Mr. Daly. Okay, I believe that is all for the opposition. Is that correct, Broadcast?
That is correct, Chair.
Okay, do we want to, is there anyone signed up for neutral?
To testify in neutral on AB 38, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, at this time, the public line is open and working, but there are no callers in neutral for AB 38.
Okay, thank you. And can we circle back to support and try and see if we can't pick up those two callers?
Of course, to testify in support on AB 38, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. To testify in support on AB 38, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, at this time, the public line is open and working. No callers have taken their place in queue for support on AB 38.
Thank you very much. And for those folks, if you were trying to get on and had some issues, feel free to shoot over an email and we will make sure to mark you down as in support of this bill. Deputy Superintendent Gonzalez, did you want to come up for any closing remarks? Come up, because there's no coming up. Would you like to turn your camera on?
Deputy Superintendent Felicia Gonzalez for the record. There are no closing remarks, but thank you for allowing us to be here to present your first bill.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will close the hearing on AB 38, and we will now open the hearing on Assembly Bill 19. This bill revises provisions relating to educational subjects and standards. Deputy Superintendent Moore, please begin when you are ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Bilberry Axelrod, Vice Chair Miller, and members of the Committee on Education. Deputy Superintendent of the Student Achievement Division, Dr. Jonathan Moore, for the record, presenting Assembly Bill 19, known as Standard Streamlined by the Department of Education. I'm joined by my colleague, Felicia Gonzalez, Deputy Superintendent of Educator Effectiveness. This bill was pre-filed by Governor Sisolak on behalf of the Department of Education, but this bill was truly filed on behalf of our school districts who requested clarification of the social studies requirements for graduation, and our teachers who use standards as posted by the department in their intended form, with diagrams and illustrations, and not the limited use NAC that, due to its legal nature, cannot post standards as professional educators use them to inform instruction. Section 1 is a conforming change to homeschool education by adding civics, financial literacy, and multicultural education as components of homeschool educational plans, and removes government as a requirement of homeschool educational plans. Section 1 makes a conforming change in statute, so the changes made to social studies during the 2015 and 2017 legislative sessions to multicultural education and financial literacy, respectively, are captured in the core social studies requirements for graduation. The state, through standards, determines what students should know and be able to do. The how or method of instruction is always left to the local entity, including the instructional materials. In the case of Section 1, the family, parents, or community in charge of homeschooling the student. Regarding financial literacy, the major ideas are financial literacy, financial decision-making, savings and spending, credit and debit, insurance, investing and risk, and college and career readiness. Regarding civics, the major ideas are civic and political institutions, civic dispositions and democratic principles, processes, rules, and laws. Regarding multicultural education, the major ideas are social justice, consciousness and action, respectful engagement with diverse people, and diverse contributions made by men and women from various racial and ethnic backgrounds. In 2015, multicultural education was added to NRS 389.520, not the list of core academic subjects in 389.018. Because the list of core academic subjects was not changed in 2015, the homeschool section, which requires a plan of instruction only on the 4 academic subjects, was not updated to include multicultural education. Historically, we do update NRS 388D.050 anytime there is a change in the core academic subjects listed in NRS 389.018. The last time this occurred was in 2015 with SB 25, when English, including reading, composition, and writing, was replaced with English language arts. At that time, NRS 388D.050 was updated to conform with the change to the list of core academic subjects in NRS 389.018. Section 2 makes a similar change by updating the core academic subject of social studies to expand to include civics, financial literacy, and multicultural education, and removes government. Section 3 makes a conforming change to academic standards adopted by the State Board of Education. Sections 4 and 5 exempt academic standards from being included in NAC and repeals the existing NAC. I'd like to note for the record that academic standards will still receive oversight and accountability from their adoption with the State Board of Education. Madam Chair, we're available for any questions that you or the committee may have on AB 19 at this time.
Thank you, Deputy Superintendent. And I don't see any in the chat, but would you like to raise hands if we have questions from the committee? Okay, so I've got Assemblywoman Torres. I have Assemblywoman Hanson. I'm looking, anybody else? I'm sure you'll think of something. So we will start with Assemblywoman Torres.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Dr. Moore, for your presentation. I do appreciate it. It's always great to see you, even in this virtual setting. And so as I looked over AB 19, I know you talked a little bit about what multicultural ed is. And I think it's really important that we talk about that topic, since I know that educational pedagogy has evolved over the last 20 years. And when we talk about, what we're teaching in the classroom, things like financial literacy haven't always been a part of the classroom. And so our education system has to evolve along with educational research-based changes. And so I know that we want to make an education system that is based off of that research here in the state of Nevada. And I think that this bill is getting at that, but I really just want to understand what multicultural education is and what it is not, because I received several emails that identified multicultural education as something that I don't think it is. So if you could just really clarify, this is what multicultural education is, and this is what multicultural education is not, so that we can clarify for that for the record.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Torres, for the question. Dr. Jonathan Moore for the record. So our current academic standards for social studies outlines 3 major ideas for multicultural education that are to be embedded within the content standards. And so those include social justice, consciousness, and action. It includes respectful engagement with diverse people. And it also includes diverse contributions made by men and women from various racial and ethnic backgrounds. It is instruction that integrates the histories, texts, and beliefs and perspectives of people from different cultural backgrounds. And so as I just reiterated what the content themes were, it is important to know that the how these themes are taught, and the instructional materials that are used to teach these themes are a matter for local entities to decide. In this case, whether it's a school district or charter school, or someone instructing in a homeschool environment.
I'll follow up if I may, Chair.
Sure.
So just to clarify then, multicultural education is not teaching students to not understand, to not work with other groups, right? This is supposed to help create a respectful community that engages with diverse peoples.
My apologies. Thank you, Assemblywoman. Dr. Jonathan Moore, for the record, thank you for allowing me to clarify. You're absolutely correct. This is in no way intended or outlined in the standards to exclude or to divert attention away from or to critique or criticize any group. It is designed to be inclusive and to help expand the intellectual curiosity and horizons around various groups, ethnicities, and cultures.
Okay, thank you, and we'll move on to Assemblywoman Hanson.
Thank you, Chair. And hi, Dr. Moore. It's good to see you. A question that I have is, from the feedback I've been getting, when did the Department of Ed engage with the Homeschooling Association or some of those stakeholders in drafting some of this?
Thank you, Assemblywoman Hanson. Dr. Jonathan Moore, for the record. So we've been in conversation with members of the homeschool community, even as late as today. We began our outreach or our connections with that community approximately a couple of weeks ago. Due to the fast-paced nature of how the bill developed, especially as part of the governor's original bill draft, we weren't able to reach out as early as we would have liked. But we've been very responsive, like I said, including us today, in meeting with members of the community, as well as having conversations around concerns that they may have and then the intent of the bill.
And if I might, Chair, follow up. Dr. Moore, I know you're aware, but perhaps for those listening, that I think it was in 2007, there was unanimous bipartisan support to kind of take homeschooling jurisdiction away from the Department of Ed. It's more of a local school, local control sort of issue. And as a parent who has used, I've utilized the public school system, I have homeschooled for a number of years, and I've used private school. I've exercised all those options. I have seen the process in homeschooling in the 90s go from a very onerous system to, frankly, through a lot of work and a lot of bipartisan work, where we got to 2007, where, it became less onerous and it gave parents the freedom to, teach and pick not the subjects, because the subjects are enumerated, but to be able to develop their curriculum maybe that best suits their child. And I think, as it stands, I think the form, which is your oversight at the Department of Ed, the 2-page, which is quite easy, the intent to homeschool form that then is filed with your local jurisdiction district. There it lists the subject standards. And I frankly think so much of this is already covered. The idea that we're going to substitute the word civics in, that's covered by government. Financial literacy, that's covered by economics. Multiculturalism is in the broader scope of social studies. And so I'm just curious why the need for this now. What is giving the Department of Ed reason for concern to have to make these changes in regards to homeschooling with those subjects?
Thank you, Assemblywoman Hanson, Dr. Jonathan Moore, for the record. So in following historical precedent, we know that in 2015, when English language arts, when English including reading, composition, and writing shifted to become English language arts, that conforming change was made to the list of core subjects, including those for homeschool. And so in 2015 also, when multicultural education was added to NRS, it did not update the core academic subjects to include that. And so then following with civics and financial literacy. So I believe the bill is an attempt to reconcile the conforming changes that have been past precedent when there have been shifts in core subjects.
And if I may, I wanted to bring in our senior policy analyst. You had mentioned the 2007 language, and I don't know if you're referring to SB 404, but that actually did deal with core. If you could, Ms. Robusto, if you could mention what that bill did, because there might be a little bit of misinformation. I just want to make sure we're clear on the record.
Christy Robusto, Committee Policy Analyst for the record. I'm going to allow our legal counsel to first explain what it did with regard to NRS to adhere to legal's perspective, and then I'm happy to clarify anything additional.
Great.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Christy. This is Amanda Mernsick, Committee Counsel. So SB 404 did establish the homeschool provisions, and at the time that SB 404 was enacted, it did align with the core academic subjects that are currently listed in 389.018. And then again in 2015, when those subjects were amended to accommodate the English language arts change, the homeschool provision, now codified at 388D.050, was also amended to reflect the changes to the core academic subjects. So historically, since the establishment of the homeschool provisions, which you see now at 388D.050, those core academic subjects have always aligned with those listed in 389.018 for public schools.
Thank you for that clarification. And Ms. Robusto, did you want to add anything or?
Christy Robusto, Committee Policy Analyst for the record. I think Ms. Marisick, sorry, Amanda, covered it quite nicely. As she stipulated, the core academic subjects have consistently aligned since the homeschooling legislation was enacted in 2007.
Thank you both for that clarification. Okay, I think my next question came from Assemblywoman Krasner, and I apologize if I missed somebody. If you want to raise your hand, I'm happy to go to you after Ms. Assemblywoman Krasner.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And thank you, Dr. Moore, for your presentation. I have received a multitude of emails from parents who feel that this bill is infringing upon the homeschooling parents' autonomy to educate their child at a pace and a level that's appropriate for their individual child's needs. They're telling me that they would like to be removed from this legislation, and I'm wondering if you could please comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Krasner. Dr. Jonathan Moore for the record. So the intent of the legislation does not seek to infringe upon anyone's right or freedom. As I mentioned in my presentation, the state determines through academic standards what students should be able to know and do. The how that happens, the instructional materials that are used, the experiences that are created are all left at the local level, whether school districts, charter schools, or in this case, those who are engaged in homeschooling. And so the state through this legislation in no way intends to insert itself in how these things are taught or the instructional materials that may be used to teach the core academic subjects. We're simply, seeking to align the core academic subjects across the two relevant statutes.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification as well. And if I may ask a couple questions, let me actually look and make sure that. Oh, we have Assemblywoman Tolles. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Trying to toggle different screens reading the NRS and Zoom. Excuse me for the delay. So thank you. I have a couple questions. Thank you for the presentation, and certainly have a profound interest in these topics and in civics, American government, and financial literacy, as you know, and multicultural education. We supported this, I know in my tenure here. We didn't talk much about the change from American government to civics, so I was just wondering if you could explain what that term means and how that encompasses American government. I know you talked about some of the core themes, but if we could just, again, go back to that to clarify it, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Tolles, Dr. Jonathan Moore, for the record. So when we talk about social studies as outlined in the Nevada Academic Content Standards, there's essentially 6 strands. And so, if I may, the development of these standards are the work of educators from across the state who then meet and leverage their expertise to create the standards that are subsequently approved by the State Board of Education. Regarding government, government is not being removed from social studies. So within our social studies standards, we have strands. We have 6 of them. That includes civics being one of the strands. Government is typically a course that's often found in high schools. And so when we think of civics, so the reason of changing government to civics, when we think of civics, civics includes not only the skills and attitude necessary to engage instruction, as a productive member of the community, but civics also includes practices that are aligned to communication, cooperation, decision-making, and it also provides the foundation regarding the underpinning of the U.S. American government. And so the idea that that they're either synonymous or that by shifting away from government to civics, that we're somehow missing vital content or somehow missing vital philosophical underpinnings, I would offer that that's not the case. By shifting to civics, we're in fact expanding the scope of knowledge and the horizon for intellectual curiosity around the United States government, in addition to what it means to be a productive member of a community or society.
Thank you, Dr. Moore, and certainly so incredibly important. If I can follow up on, and I appreciated the history and background and the explanation in previous conversations about the 2007 change of SB 404 and the 2015 change of SB 25. And obviously there is quite a bit of interest in that particular section of this bill. So if you let me, I'd like to clarify just a little further. So I pulled up SB 25 from 2015. And it's a 37-page text, but just doing a search for NRS 388D.050, it didn't produce any listing of that. I do see in actually looking up the NRS in that section that it does include English language arts. So maybe you could just walk me through the process of SB 25 didn't explicitly write into the text that those changes were going to conform into the homeschooling chapters. And so now that we see it in a bill in 2021, it's certainly brought a lot more of a notice that it's included in this bill. Could you just help me understand?
Assemblywoman, I think this might be a good question for our legal counsel, unless you want to take this, Dr. Moore, but I think maybe legal counsel could share the insight on those two in comparison.
Thank you.
Yes, I can. Thank you, Madam Chair. Amanda Mernsted, Community Counsel. So in SB 25 from 2015, Section 18 of that bill addresses the homeschool provisions, and at the time, 388D.050 was codified in a different location within NRS. So at that time, that section was 392.700, and all of the homeschool sections were kind of squished into one section. So if you look at Section 18 of SB 25, Subsection 12 is the language regarding the parents of a child who is being homeschooled shall prepare an educational plan of instruction for the child in the subject areas of English, And that is where the change from English, including reading, composition, and writing was changed to English language arts in that section, and that's now codified at 388D.050.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. And I did miss someone. I knew I did. Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a quick question regarding that this act would become effective upon passage and approval. So could you elaborate a little bit on what would be needed to implement this and how soon that really would take effect?
Thank you, Assemblywoman Gorlow, Dr. Jonathan Moore for the record. So regarding our school districts and charter schools, they've been preparing for this shift for quite some time. And so actually codifying it would catch up to where many of them are. Of course, the department will be providing technical assistance, as we already are, about how to implement the standards as they currently are. And so for our members who are a part of the homeschooling community, as I mentioned, there would be no shift in terms of requirements related to instructional materials or how they instruct. They would simply look to make the determination about the best way to incorporate these things, these core academic subjects into their teaching and learning. And so we don't anticipate the lift, if you will, being too magnanimous for either our public school educators or those educating within homeschool.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. And if I don't have any other questions, I'm just going to take a little liberty and cover a couple things, and I'm going to ask you a question. Just so the record is clear, civics is encompassing of government. We are not removing government at all. I think as someone who has served in this body for a few sessions now, I'm much better at reading bills than I was when I first came. And so I think one of the problems that might have happened for some people, I'm not saying all people, is the way it's written in this bill. It says civics, financial literacy, and then government is crossed out in red, and it says multicultural education. So I think that there might be some misrepresentation out there, and I'm going to assume that it's benign, that government is now being replaced by multicultural education. I can 100% tell you that is not the case. Civics will encompass government. So I just want to get that on the record. The last thing, and I know all of our emails and phones have been blowing up, for lack of a better term. I've had many conversations with some homeschooling folks who are concerned. I think it's important to get on the record because I wasn't familiar what an education plan looks like. I assumed that an education plan would be, a big syllabus that homeschooling parents would have to produce. But could you please let the committee know and those who are listening what an education plan looks like, how often an education plan needs to be turned in, and if those education plans need to be updated because of standards?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Dr. Jonathan Moore for the record. So regarding the homeschool education plan, there is some variance. There's basic information that's completed. So if a parent or family is looking to homeschool their child, they complete the form that outlines their demographic information, address, and the like, and then it outlines essentially the course of study. That greatly varies across schools, across systems. We found that some families will turn in a robust plan that outlines specifically how they plan to address the core content areas and standards. Some simply provide an overview of how they propose to do that. In any instance, the goal is not to hinder or delay the approval process. And so there's a lot of latitude based on the information that parents can provide regarding regarding the homeschool plan. In terms of the cadence of updating, currently there is not necessarily a requirement such as annually or on a consistent cadence. What we would expect would be if a family has either transitioned geographically, so if they move locations outside of one district to another, that they would update. But it's a one-time plan, and so it does not need to be refiled essentially unless a parent or family changes their address or a child is re-entering homeschool after being enrolled in a public school. There's no expectation that they would amend their existing plans.
So even with the changes that, if this bill goes through, current homeschooling parents would not have to update their education plan?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Dr.
And
Moore, for the record.
thank you. And would it be fair to say, because you said you have very robust education plans, do some people just turn in like a one-pager?
Madam Chair, Dr. Moore, for the record, that would be an accurate depiction on as part of the spectrum.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that. And I think we will move on. I think we have quite a queue coming up to testify on behalf of this bill. So we will start with support. I'm going to remind you that you have 2 minutes. Spell your name, clearly state and spell your name. We won't start the 2 minutes until after you have spelled your name, because some of us, like Bilbray Axelrod, takes, a big 30 seconds to spell that. So we will start after that. And I encourage you, I know a lot of folks are interested in this. If someone said exactly what you want to say, you can say the last caller, I wholeheartly agree, or ditto, and we will make sure it is part of the record. So we'll go ahead and broadcast production services. Please add the first caller in support.
To testify in support on AB 19, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 692, can you please press star 6 to unmute? There we go.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Mary Przinski, MaryPierczynski, and I'm representing the Nevada Association of School Superintendents, which is an organization composed of all 17 superintendents in the state. And we are in support of AB 19 and appreciate the clarification of the social studies curriculum in our public schools. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Superintendent. Next caller.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 635, please press star 6 now to unmute. You will have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello, committee members. My name is Nathan Noble. For the record, it is spelled Nathannoble. I'm a student at the University of Nevada, Reno, and I am currently an intern for Assemblywoman Anderson. But today, I am here only on behalf of myself to represent my views and my experiences. I am also a proud product of the Nevada public school system. Having recently graduated, I've gained a bit of a new perspective on my education, as I can now see how each of my studies really impacted and shaped my future. For me, it is undeniable that each core curriculum class played an essential role in developing my path to academic success. But as I've come to realize, the point of an education is to arm students with the tools they need to succeed as they enter the world as adults. And in retrospect, the instruction that has helped me the most in this regard was quite different. Classes like financial literacy that taught me how to handle my money responsibly, that I took, I'll look back to last week as I was doing my taxes for the first time. Like the multicultural education that I received as a part of the International Baccalaureate program that expanded my cultural periphery. And, of course, civics that taught me about my rights as an American, a class without which I might not be here before you today. In retrospect, I was extraordinarily lucky to receive instruction in such crucial fields. It was an opportunity that not every student is afforded. For every student like me that had these advantages, there were so many more that didn't. Now, I come in support of this bill so that no student will ever have to miss these opportunities. Each of the proposed amendments to course material covers an essential skill for living in the modern world, and to deprive any student of instruction in these fields would be to do them a grave disservice. After all, how can we expect students to navigate the challenges of life if we do not prepare them for the realities of the modern world? If we expect high performance from our students, we must set high standards. Any homeowner will tell you, a strong house must have a strong foundation, and real success must be built on real understanding. Thus, I urge you in the strongest possible terms to pass Assembly Bill 19 for the profound amount of good it will do for students all over our state. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Mr. Noble. Broadcast, if we could have our next caller in support.
Caller with the last three digits of 626. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Chair, members of the committee, Rob Wilson, that's R-O-B-W-I-L-S-O-N, with the Nevada Credit Union League, here to offer some brief comments on AB 19. As you know, credit unions have been on the forefront of financial literacy in the state, and we take it very seriously. We've been offering programs ourselves to try to help Nevadans understand the importance of the programs that were listed out earlier today in terms of checking accounts, savings accounts, credit, et cetera. And we strongly believe this should be part of the curriculum. So urge your support and appreciate the commitment towards financial literacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Next caller.
Caller with the last three digits of 577. Please press *6 now to unmute. You will have 2 minutes. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin.
Good afternoon. Chris Daly, D-A-L-Y, the Nevada State Education Association. NSEA has been the voice of Nevada educators for over 120 years. NSEA supports AB 19 and in particular supports the clarification of multicultural education as a part of the social studies requirement for all Nevada students. Research affirms what educators intuitively know. Multicultural education, or the study of social, political, economic, and historical perspectives of our nation's diverse racial and ethnic groups, helps foster cross-cultural understanding among students of color and white students. Multicultural education aids students in valuing their own cultural identity while appreciating the differences around them. Students who participate in multicultural education are more academically engaged, develop a stronger sense of self-efficacy and personal empowerment, perform better academically, and graduate at higher rates. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Next caller.
Caller with the last three digits of 851. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to support AB 19. My name is Anthony McTaggart, M-C-T-A-G-G-A-R-T. I'm speaking today as the co-founder of Anson Inc., a Nevada-born nonprofit operating since 2010 that provides financial literacy and after-school academic support to approximately 10,000 students per year. I'm here to address the piece on financial literacy and multicultural studies and the values that come with that. I know of no parent in our state that would not wish for their child to support values and perceptions around personal finance. As a mentor myself and one that truly wants every Nevada student to live and be productive in our ever-changing state, I believe that we need to prepare our students and children for a diverse life, career, and the increasing financial complexities that come with that. So in our world, we support a term called plasticity. So what we teach a child today about personal finance shapes their values and perceptions, so their way of thinking. It gives them the pathways to be successful in a very different landscape than we're in today. So when I was taught values and perceptions around money, I was prepared as best as my parents could provide. What's changed? I'm 37 years old. Online banking, Venmo, Tap to Pay, fractional investing through Robinhood and Acorns, they're all new. With the recent news of Robinhood regarding stocks such as GameStop and AMC, we can see that young people are hungry to act and, most importantly, learn. Values and perceptions around money, around finances, and living in a financially sound life does not change. Accepting others in our communities does not change. What financial literacy as a component covers is not covered in standard economics. I want to drive that home for you all today. You can completely understand economics in place nationally and internationally. You can be extremely successful. And without understanding values and perceptions around personal finance, you will still suffer throughout your life. And we see it in some of the most famous people that exist in our society. So what I'm asking of you today, and what Anson wants to provide to this committee, is that supporting finance and multicultural studies is imperative for our youth. We have to build the plasticity and the pathways so that they can continue to learn and be successful throughout their financial future and in their careers in life. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. We'll do one more caller, and then we'll be at the 10 minutes. We'll move on to opposition. So let's do one more caller now for support.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 091. Please press *6 now to unmute. You will have 2 minutes. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Felicia Ortiz, spelled Felicia, last name Ortiz. And I'm calling in support of AB 19. As many of you know, I am the president of the State Board of Education, but I'm calling on my own behalf today because I have such a strong feeling about specifically multicultural education and financial literacy, something I was blessed to be taught in my years in high school, and I think I can't say it any better than the student who just graduated. So Assemblywoman Borlo, your attaché is amazing. The way that they described how it has impacted their life, I think, says it all. And from a policymaker's perspective, I just want to say how important it is for us to have consistency across policy, so that we're not trying to keep track of too many different things. The more consistency we have, the easier it is for us to keep track of everything and hold things accountable. So I will stop there and leave my time for the rest of the public comment, but just wanted to say that I fully support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ortiz. Now we will move on, and we will do 10 minutes of opposition to AB 19. Broadcast.
Thank you, Chair. Just one moment. To testify in opposition on AB 19, please press *9 now to take your place in queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 832, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Michael Kurcab. Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, Kurcab, K-U-R-C-A-B. We are a homeschooling family and vehemently opposed to any changes to the current Nevada homeschooling laws. AB 19 seeks to change both homeschool and public school laws with no understanding or accommodation of the differences between the two. Further, no homeschoolers were consulted prior to this proposed change. The Nevada education system has consistently demonstrated its inability to effectively educate our children, even with increased budgets. The Nevada homeschool community has done their part as conscientious citizens to take responsibility for the successful and all-encompassing education of our own children. This proposed overreach of power over individuals is egregious. We are a nation of laws to protect individual life and liberty. We are not a nation nor a state of people to be ruled by unaccountable bureaucrats. The Nevada homeschool community does not want homeschool included in this bill. Early on, children learn a word for people who tell others how to live their lives: busybodies. Until the past century, the primary tool of busybodies was social stigma. They shamed people. But as government has grown in power and scope, busybodies have found better ways to satisfy their need to mind everyone else's business. They harness the coercive power of government. These busybodies become busy bullies when they meet government. Busybodies have always disapproved of others' choices, but today, as busy bullies, they use government to force others to comply with their worldview. You know, financial literacy is absolutely important, except it's not a subject that we teach. It's a principle that we live. And if you look at most homeschoolers who are financing their family's education while also financing the rest of our community's education, financial literacy is a cornerstone to what we do. The idea of social justice, well, you know, Thomas Sowell, a very famous African-American economist, put it best. Lofty talk about social justice or fairness boils down to greatly expanded powers for politicians. Since those pretty words have no concrete definition, they are a blank check for creating disparities in power that dwarf disparities in income and are far more dangerous. Thank you.
Thank
I
you,
yield my
Mr.
time.
Thank you. Thank you for the call, Mr. Cub. Next caller.
Caller with the last three digits of 842. You will have 2 minutes. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin.
My name is David Gibbs, D-A-V-I-D, G-I-B-B-S. First, I applaud you for adding financial literacy to this bill. Something long overdue, and we're seeing that in a lot of our young people not understanding how to manage their finances. I do have an issue with scratching out government and saying that now it is a subsystem of civics. In NRS 389.054, it talks about American government, and it talks about the essentials of the Constitution of the United States and Nevada, the Declaration of Independence, the origin and history of the constitutions, the study of and devotion to American institution ideals, and civics. It makes civics a subset of government. With this bill, crossing out government and putting in civics, you are now subordinating the tenets of the American government to civics. If you want to include civics, which is already in the core competency, that's fine. However, I think you should not strike out government in this bill. It makes a bad statement. And the chairman made a comment that, well, you know, government's still going to be taught. Well, if government's still going to be taught, then why cross it off? Why not leave it in there? But subordinating it to civics sets a bad tone for what the public will see as an emphasis of what you're teaching our children in school. If we've seen nothing in the last 10 years, we've seen that there have been issues and questions about the Constitution. What is it? How does it work? What is all involved in it? How did it come about being? And a lack of understanding generally in the public on how that all works. And I think this bill just subordinates that even more to creating an attitude of social activism over an understanding of how the government works. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. Next caller.
Caller with the last three digits of 170. Please press *6 now to unmute. You will have 2 minutes. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin.
Hi, my name is Elisa Wall. I'm the chair of Nevada Homeschool Network. My name is spelled ELISSAWAHL. So Nevada Homeschool Network has been in existence for over 20 years. We lobbied for and unanimously won SB 404, our homeschooling freedom bill, in 2007. And today we represent over 4,000 homeschoolers in Nevada. This bill brought a lot of publicity and huge opposition from homeschooling families. This is not in opposition to merely adding content. The uproar is about our freedom from the Department of Education and their attitude towards homeschoolers. We contend that the Department of Ed has no authority to modify homeschooling language. Homeschoolers came out from under the department jurisdiction in 2007. This decision is now in your hands, the hands of the legislators. It should have not been brought forth by the Department of Ed. Instead of homeschoolers wanted it, we should have brought it. Regarding the SB 25 in 2015, it was done also without any homeschooler input. And what you are not talking about is in 2017, SB 249 was passed. That is the bill that passed financial literacy and civics for public schools. Those, and that's many years ago, 4 years ago, those were never brought over into our homeschooling core subjects. So to continue with the mantra of always and historically aligned is incorrect and adds more consternation to the argument. We also contend that the DOE did not include stakeholders before drafting this bill. In fact, we reached out to them and had a phone call last Friday. They were not open to our objections. They did not get back to us, and they refused the friendly amendment. Finally, we contend that the current core subjects satisfy state constitutional requirements to provide and promote suitable learning. With all of this in mind, we ask you to strike out Section 1 of AB 19 per our amendment request, and I'm sorry that it was not a friendly amendment.
Thank you, Ms.
I yield my time.
Next caller.
Caller with the last three digits, 373. Please press star 6 now to unmute. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last three digits of 373. Please press star 6 now to unmute.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob Russo, and that's Bobrusso, and I live in Gardnerville. And while I support financial literacy, which is something I learned from my parents, I urge you to please amend AB 19 to keep government in the list of subjects for social studies in our school. In my opinion, it's imperative that our children receive a basic understanding of how our government functions as a representative republic, and including such things as the Bill of Rights, the Electoral College, so that they can grow up to serve our nation as informed citizens. And of course, many of them will serve as our representatives in the future. I know that civics is included in this bill, but I just question the depth of training in government that our students and our children will receive with this bill. Also, I'm very concerned about replacing government as a list of subjects with multiculturalism, which I believe could open the door to teaching divisive ideologies such as critical race theory that could lead to hatred, divisiveness, and hostility among our children instead of bringing them together as friends and young Americans, kids that can play sports together and get along, go skiing, and things like that. I think we should encourage our kids to learn how to communicate, to have civil discourse among themselves when differences arise for whatever reason, and never, ever encourage division because of somebody's race or whatever. That's just not a good thing. I grew up in the 60s after the civil rights. I went to a parochial school. We had people of varying backgrounds, Native Americans, Black Americans, Hispanics, and so forth. We never even thought about that stuff. We all got along just fine. So instead of expanding the curriculum, I support focusing the education of our children on basics, math, science, reading, compositions, and things of that nature. And lastly, I do have concerns that this bill could force homeschool education plans to submit to its mandates. I personally support homeschool freedom and parental rights regarding the education of their children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Russo. And we'll take one more call in opposition, then we will move to neutral. And we will circle back around, just so you know, if you're still in the queue, we're going to come back to you. We're just doing 10 minutes apiece, then we'll circle back.
Caller with the last three digits of 090. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hi, my name is Erin Phillips, ERINPHILLIPS. I am the president of Power to Parent, We represent 9,200 parents across the state of Nevada, and I understand that the department's goal in this bill, which they've stated, is to create a conforming change. I don't take issue with the stated purpose, and I recognize these standards were previously passed and they already exist in state standards. We don't take issue with any of the content. I actually want to support this bill if this is the stated purpose, if this is accurate. But Section 1 is an unnecessary addition to the language of this bill. SB 25 was mentioned, passed in 2015, made an innocuous change to the language from English to English language arts. I would contend that it strikes out reading, composition, and writing and adds the word language arts. This is really not, in fact, a new core subject. It's just an expanded way of stating English language arts. That's why they struck out the language regarding reading, composition, and writing. So I don't believe this is an addition of a new core subject. Also, SB 249 passed in 2017, which was referenced by the department, also did not mention homeschools. It was specifically intended for public schools, and I keep hearing the word historically aligned. I don't see anywhere where that has been historically aligned. That was not added in that bill in 2017. So we would just ask that section Section 1 pertaining to homeschools be removed or amended. With that change, we would support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. And now we will move on to 10 minutes, if we have it, of neutral testimony.
Thank you, Chair. To take your place in queue to take your place in queue to testify in neutral on AB 19, please press star 9 now. To testify in neutral on AB 19, please press star 9 now to take your place in queue. Chair, the line is open and working. There are no callers in neutral on AB 19 at this time.
Thank you very much. So we will swing back to support for AB 19. Once again, slowly state your name and spell it so we can have it on record. And you have 2 minutes. If the person before you said exactly what you wanted to say, feel free to say ditto, or they said exactly what I wanted to say. But we do want to get you on the record as either support or opposed. So we will go back to, we will take 10 minutes of support in Bill AB 19. Go ahead, broadcast. Thank you.
No problem, Chair. To testify in support on AB 19, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 017, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Committee, this is Sylvia Lazos, Sylvialazos, and I am here to support AB 19 and testify on behalf of the Nevada Immigrant Coalition, which is made up of over 40 groups in support of immigrants in Nevada. This is a priority bill for the Nevada Immigrant Coalition because we understand that in multicultural education, we have the opportunity to teach our students who will be future Nevada citizens the value of immigration and the benefits that immigrants bring to Nevada. The current anti-immigrant sentiments that are manifested in many communities in Nevada is not the way that things have to be. And the Nevada Immigrant Coalition believes that through education, we can better come to a dialogue that appreciates each other's benefit. Please also allow me to testify as a professor at the law school, UNLV Law School, to illustrate why I think this is such an important bill. In my constitutional law course, we go very quickly through American history, the Dred Scott case, slave codes, black codes, neutral laws, supposedly like Homer versus Plessy. We do that in a matter of 2 weeks. It's my assumption that when a student comes to the UNLV Law School, whether he is schooled in a public school or in homeschool, that this student has a complete grasp of our history, which is absolutely essential to understand our constitutional principles. Students who do not have that kind of complete understanding are at a definite disadvantage in our public universities, which I, again, assume that students are taught a complete version of American history. And let me end as a parent, as a mother of two young children who are Latino, brown-skinned, and are adopted from Guatemala and are indigenous. My youngest son, when he was in 4th grade, was asked to pretend to be a great Nevadan. He had to choose among a list, and he chose to be Sarah Winnemucca. And his teacher kind of had a heart attack when he chose that. But the problem was that he hadn't been taught about any Latino historical figures or any indigenous leaders in the state of Nevada. Oddly, Chief Winnemucca was not among the figures that he learned about. And eventually he chose to be Chief Winnemucca. He wrote a very nice essay on him, but all of this, his knowledge about Chief Winnemucca was taught at home and taught through books that I purchased for him. It's very important for minority children to see themselves in the history of Nevada and in our great heroes that have created this great community. And it is certainly, in my view, a terrible omission for my son to have gone to a school that did not teach the great contributions of Chief Winnemucca in creating a civic culture in which he strove to make sure that the indigenous people and the Caucasians who settled Nevada understood each other better. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that story as well. We will move on to the next caller in support.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 498. Please press *6 now to unmute. You'll please state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Erica Valdriz, ERICAVALDRIZ, with the Vegas Chamber. The Chamber is in support of AB 19. The Chamber has been supportive of previous legislative measures that have included classes like financial literacy. We believe these types of curriculum components are important classes to students. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee, for your time. We urge your support for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take the next caller in support.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 307. Please press *6 now to unmute. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
My name is Hannah Branch, HANNAHBRANCH. I'm a senior in Worcester High School's International Baccalaureate program and a co-founder of the local student activism group Washoe County Students for Change. We support AB 19 and thank you for hearing our testimony. The multicultural education emphasized in AB 19 is a critical opportunity for our state to have the humbling opportunity, to improve safety and opportunity for all students in Nevada. Through my organization's work, I have the humbling opportunity to connect with Black, Indigenous, people of color, and LGBT+ students to learn about their experiences in Nevada's classrooms. While as a white student, I have been extremely fortunate to receive 12 years of growth and support through Nevada's education system, I've quickly learned that many of my LGBT+ peers and peers of color have not had a similar experience. I've heard from students who have endured racially motivated bullying, name-calling, slurs, and been ostracized in the hallways. I've heard from students who feel unseen and yet singled out in classrooms. Almost without exception, I've heard from students who have not seen themselves in social studies lessons. If you're wondering why I'm summarizing so many of these conversations, it's because regrettably they often end in the same way. I ask if a student would be interested in speaking out about their experience, and often the student tells me they wouldn't feel safe doing so in our state's current climate, a climate that normalizes discriminatory behavior in schools. So as I do my best to relay these messages secondhand, I have to ask you to imagine what you would do if your own child felt so unsafe in their identity that they couldn't speak out about it at all. Multicultural education is a critical step in disassembling this culture of hostility through understanding, a responsibility we all share. It's pivotal and encouraging that this is on the floor today. As a current student, I can say with confidence that the skills I do and don't learn in school, from developing understandings of different cultures to learning to save money to understanding the voter registration process, have impacts that reach far beyond my classrooms. I learned math in school, allowing me to be a cashier. I learned ELA, allowing me to communicate effectively and think critically. Nevada students will graduate to become influential members of our communities. We'll be doctors, lawyers, teachers, voters, employees, and we need practical skills to do so with empathy, compassion, respect, and success. This starts with the passage of AB 19. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Branch. And it's always good to hear from students who are actually on the ground getting their diploma. So thank you for taking time out of your day. Okay, so we have two more calls in support, and then we'll go back to opposition. So if we can get the next person in support, if there is one.
Caller with the last three digits of 559. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Yvette Williams, Chair of the Clark County Black Caucus. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of this committee. Speaking to you today on Assembly Bill 19 in support of this bill. This organization has worked over 10 years with the legislature to get multicultural academic standards passed and implemented in the state, which we're still struggling to do. But this public policy should reflect the values of our society. And we know that just looking at the summer of 2020, just last year, it demonstrates the need for multicultural education in being able to relate, understand, and accepting each other in this diverse state. It's our understanding, it's no secret to anyone who's a minority in the state of Nevada, that we don't have the option to just live or even visit many communities within Nevada, or we would be ostracized and ridiculed and not even be able to live in that community. So there's only certain places in Nevada that we can live as minorities. That demonstrates in itself the climate and culture in which we live in. Having multicultural education is the foundation of civic duty, and it reflects it's not social activism, which I heard someone comment earlier. Multicultural education is not social activism, but instead it's actually the foundation of social justice. And so I want to I agree with many of those who have commented earlier, so I won't repeat all of those things, but I want to leave you by saying that the CCBC strongly supports multicultural education and this particular bill, Assembly Bill 19. We hope that this committee will quickly pass it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. And we will take one more in support of AB 19 broadcast.
Caller with the last three digits of 888. Please press *6 now to unmute. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and member of the Assembly Committee on Education. My name is Maylia Larcon, Maylialarcon, and I'm testifying on behalf of the Nevada Bankers Association in support of Assembly Bill 19. Thank you.
Since that was so brief, I think we'll do one more so we can make it 10 minutes in support.
Caller with the last three digits of 265. Please press *6 now to unmute. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Maya Boulier, Maiabeaulieu, and I'm a junior at Reno High School. I'm representing Washoe County Students for Change and Diversify Our Narrative, and I'm supporting AB 19. For my entire life, I've attended predominantly white schools and lived in predominantly white neighborhoods. Because I've been privileged enough not to experience any discrimination race or ethnicity, it wasn't until March of 2020 that I became fully aware of the injustices that many people face today. In my history classes, I've learned about slavery and segregation. After the Jim Crow era, it's been implied that everything was all rainbows and sunshine, when it really wasn't and still isn't. It wasn't until this year that I learned about the historical discrimination against immigrants to America, and only briefly did we learn about concentration camps for the Japanese during World War II. Throughout my education, I've learned about the big issues, but nothing after that. Once that issue was solved, then led to believe that the issue no longer remains, which simply isn't true. For the last year of my life, I've spent my time educating myself on current problems that minorities face today. As I've become more aware of these issues, I've learned that they stem from many historical events that I've not learned about in school. Not every student will spend their Sunday evening educating themselves, which is why it's imperative for multicultural history to be taught in schools and to help Nevada better prepare students to be active, productive, and responsible members of society. Now more than ever, we need to stand together and make the choice to educate students in a way that better encompasses our changing societal standards. By passing Bill 19, we can make good decisions today for a better tomorrow. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And I want to say again, thank you. Love to hear from high school students being engaged in our legislative process. So thank you. Okay, now we will go back to 10 minutes of opposition. First caller.
To testify in opposition on AB 19, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 614, please press star 6 now to unmute. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. We'll have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hi, my name is Katie Madison. It's Matteson. I'm a mother of 6. I'm a homeschool parent of 10 years. My oldest graduated in 2020. I want to point out the following. The Department of Education informed us, the Nevada Homeschool Network, that they wanted to include us in this bill because homeschoolers in this bill because they want to streamline or ease the transition from homeschool to public school, which is naive at best. Anyone who wants to return to public school after homeschooling, speaking of high school here, has to abide by accredited curriculum standards. Those former or soon-to-be former homeschoolers use forethought and currently pay attention to public school standards and the requirements to return if they want that to count towards graduation. I've coached people and seen others in Facebook forums, especially this year, in how to be the best director of their child's education by asking them if they plan to go back to public school. When they say they do, we tell them it's important to use and consider the public school requirements as their guide. The DOE saying they're trying to ease the transition while still holding the current requirements is a false pretense. They don't recognize credits at the discretion of the homeschool parents' curriculum choice to begin with. Lastly, we homeschool parents seek to teach with and about empathy, individual responsibility, and diversity already. Those subject changes in AB 19, they're not wrong in their ideology, but they're 100% wrong in their being written into our core standards without our consent. The definition of core standard is this: an objective parameter by which a foundation or group benchmarks itself. DOE doesn't get to set core standards for homeschoolers because we aren't under their umbrella. You can see NRS 388D.020, where the court acknowledged the need to vest the legislature with discretion over education into the future. We're the ones who get to suggest changes to the court standards, not DOE, which is why DOE should have consulted us, and ultimately they should have also rescinded when we reached out to them and declined the change. They were given the opportunity at the request of the Nevada Homeschool Network to take out Section 1, which applies to homeschoolers, but refused to entertain the idea, which is what we're asking you, the legislature, to do now. Remove homeschoolers from the bill in Section 1 and make clear to the DOE that their authority stops where ours starts, which is the NOI filed and the education plan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Madison. Next caller in opposition.
To testify in opposition on AB 19, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, at this time, I have no more callers in the queue for opposition.
Okay, and I'm assuming we have no more callers in neutral.
Let me find out, Chair.
Okay.
To testify neutral on AB 19, please press star 9 now to take your place in queue. And you are correct, Chair. We have no one who wants to speak neutral on AB 19.
Okay, and we can go back to support.
To testify in support on AB 19, please press star 9 now to take your place in queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 262, please press star 6 now to unmute. You will have 2 minutes. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin. Caller with the last 3 digits of 262, we cannot hear you. We'll come back to you. Caller with the last 3 digits of 126, please press star 6 now to unmute. Caller with the last 3 digits of 126, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Drew Tilbrook. That's DREWTILBROOKE, and I'm a junior at Reno High School. I'm here on behalf of Washoe County Students for Change and Diversify Our Narrative in support of AB 19. From kindergarten to today, I've learned very little about people of color in school. I took too long to learn how much whitewashing and erasure was present in our classrooms. I never learned about the Tulsa Massacre, the nuance and brutality of Jim Crow, or the Birmingham bombing. All of these topics are critical to the history of marginalized communities, but I was never taught them. The broadening of these topics in the classroom can help foster inclusion and respect for others. We should be a community that values its diversity and uplifts those that are so often forgotten or even shunned under the current status quo. As a student, I feel it important that I graduate having learned about cultures other than my own, how to stay properly engaged in the necessary discussions of our time, and how to do basic real-life things like filing taxes. The increased focus on multicultural studies would help teach students the value and beauty of diversity rather than having to view things through a single cultural lens. Civic education would help prepare this and future generations for the lifelong process that is civic engagement, yielding active citizens that fight for what they believe is right in a republic that demands it. As a high schooler, I'll go off to college knowing that I most likely won't retain a good chunk of what I've learned from more than a decade of school. However, I would definitely seek to retain financial literacy skills, as I, along with most students, know that being an adult is a whole different ballgame, with those skills being crucial. This adapted curriculum would breathe new life into education and teach students things that are much more applicable to the real world. And I know so many students would love to see and learn about things that they know are legitimately important. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Tilbrook. And as I've said to the other students who have called, I appreciate you getting involved in the legislative process as a high school student. So thank you. Were we able to get that other caller on the line?
Let me try, Chair. Caller with the last 3 digits of 262. Please, it looks like you are muted, so please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello, my name is Camille Wiggins, CamilleWiggins, and I actually had a little technical difficulty, so I am in opposition to this bill. So I don't know if I should speak now or wait.
We actually, I think, exhausted so go ahead and speak. We'll just note that it's an opposition. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, and thank you.
No, you're fine.
I just want to say I'm a parent, homeschooling parent. I would love to support this bill though I'm a homeschooling parent, I have a vested interest in everything that goes on in public education. It's a very important part of our society. And these topics that are being added are worthy topics. However, there's one glaring problem, as others have noted, so I won't go into those details, but homeschoolers are being included in this bill. I want to emphatically agree with Katie Madison and Elissa Wall that no matter how worthy the subject matter, we do not want as homeschoolers to be under any sort of umbrella of the Nevada Department of Education. It was overreach and quite frankly shady the way no stakeholders were invited and the way that things were pushed through so quickly. We don't particularly appreciate that. Like I said, I want to support this bill. I agree with many of the people who are for this bill and the comments that they've made. But I would just like to emphasize one last time to remove homeschoolers from the bill completely. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry for your trouble. This is new to all of us. So, but thank you for
Okay,
testifying.
I was too slow.
Okay, and so are there any other callers in support?
Chair, the public line is open and working. There are no other callers in support in the queue at this time.
All right, then I think we will close the testimony. And if the sponsor of the bill, Dr. Moore, did you want to make any closing remarks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not at this time.
All right, then I will close the hearing on AB 19. All right, now we're going to go into public comment. Before we go to this agenda item, I'd like to remind people that public comment is an opportunity to discuss general matters that fall within the purview of this committee. Please remember to clearly state and spell your name and limit your comments to 2 minutes. Staff in our broadcast and production services, please add the first caller with public comment to the meeting. We will have 30 minutes total for public comment.
To provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 097, please press star 6 now to unmute. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Brad Keating, Keating, representing the Clark County School District for the record. I am excited to be able to bring you all the inaugural Good News Minute. For those of you who are new to this committee, the school districts and higher education like to bring some good news happening at different schools to provide some cheer and to let you know what is happening at school districts across the state. So I wanted to start today. I know Assemblywoman Torres has a great one actually to discuss, but I will talk about Tyler Swick, who is an elementary school music educator at Bob and Sandy Ellis Elementary School in Henderson, Nevada. We are extremely proud of Tyler Swick. He was chosen as an honoree in the Yamaha Music USA's inaugural 40 under 40 music education program. So to Tyler, Mr. Swick, thank you for making CCSD #1 for kids. Thank you for your dedication to your students and for really continuing and pushing elementary music programs throughout the district. Thank you, committee.
Thank you. We'll be looking forward to a theme song for that Good News Minute in the future. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 672. Please press star 6 now to unmute. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello, my name is Teresa Melendez, Teresa Melendez, Melendez, and I am the Vice Chair with the Nevada Statewide Native American Caucus, and I'm also an Indian education consultant here in the state, and I work nationally too. And I am calling in support of AB 19. Really excited to see this bill. I'm excited for this conversation. So like the Black Caucus, the Native Caucus, and Indigenous educators around the state, have been working on priorities around Indian education and helping to bring visibility and truth in education around Indigenous peoples' histories, philosophies, and worldviews. I have students in the K through 12 system, and my 5th grader has been studying American Indian Studies recently, last couple of months, and regularly I'll check in on her lessons, or she'll give me updates on her lessons. And when our people aren't spoken about as doctors and philosophers and engineers and astronomers and experts and intelligent people, when any group of people are spoken to about their histories in this country without the recognition and respect to the genius and the brilliance and the beauty of that culture, that's when we know we have an opportunity to improve our education and curriculum to reflect the beauty of those people. Unfortunately, when we read about our Black neighbors and Indigenous neighbors, we often don't see that beauty and resilience reflected in the curriculum and how we teach. And thus, our children don't grow up to learn about the beauty of those cultures. So when we think about social justice, a huge part of that conversation is just around truth and conversations of our histories and experience. So I'm calling in favor of AB 19. I think it's incredibly important to have an honest reflection of American history, an honest depiction of people of color's experience in American history and Nevada history. I also am fully supportive of the financial literacy components. I work in college prep, and that's one of the things that we're constantly working with students on to help prepare them for college. Unfortunately, most of our students leave the K through 12 system not prepared to budget and to know how to pay for college and find their own.
We are at that 2-minute mark.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other callers for public comment?
To make public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 641, please press *6 now to unmute. Caller with the last 3 digits, 641, please press *6 now to unmute. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello, my name is Danielle Windhorst, DanielleWindhorst, for the record. And I am calling in opposition. I'm a homeschool parent, and I didn't particularly want to speak on this, but was hoping that you guys could, for the record, state how many opposition submissions that you received online, and how many for the bill you received online as well.
Is that the end of your public comment?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I know we're having some technical difficulties, but public comment does have to deal with anything in the purview of our committee. Really, we should have if you have opposition or support of a bill, that is actually during the bill hearing. So I'm gonna sort of allow it now just because of the virtual world, and I know people are having some issues, but and as far as the opinion polls, I think all legislators are aware that you can look up the opinion poll and see where not only people fall in the state of Nevada, but also you can actually drill it down to your assembly district, and the public can do that as well. So as far as is opposition, support, and neutral. So we will move on to the next person in public comment, and I'm hoping that it is on general education issues, as we have already closed the hearing on AB 19.
To give public
Next caller.
comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in queue. Chair, the public comment line is open and working. There are no more callers in queue at this time.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we will close public comment at this time. I know we have at least one comment from Assemblywoman Torres. Are there any other members who would like to make a comment? I'm looking. And no. Okay, Assemblywoman Torres, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the committee for indulging. I just want to take this moment. This week is Love Teaching Week, and we can participate in Nevada Education's Love Teaching Week via Twitter or other social media platforms. And today is Thankful Tuesday, so I wanted to take this as an opportunity to thank the first ever Latina educator named Nevada Teacher of the Year and one of the finalists for the National Award for Teacher of the Year, Juliana Urtubi, a learning strategist at Booker Elementary School in the historic West Side. She does a phenomenal job advocating for her students, advocating for our community, and additionally mentoring teachers. I just wanted to take this moment to appreciate her. And if you ever have the opportunity to work with her, she is an excellent educator, and she really is committed to improving the practice of education.
Thank you and congratulations to Juliana. All right, with that, we will begin to adjourn this meeting. Our next meeting will be Thursday, February 18th at 1:30. This concludes our meeting for the day, and the meeting is adjourned.